Welcome back to Berlin, Germany, and the LEC Summer Playoffs. It is time for another battle in the G2 versus Fnatic rivalry as the two titans hit the rift in today's Kings match. Now, IG versus FPX finished earlier. G2 is playing Fnatic right now. TSM is playing Cloud9 tonight. Caedrel and Frosk, what a day for League of Legends.
I mean, it's a stacked day. I mean, you could argue on TSM in terms of gameplay, but in terms of LEC and LPL, it's a stacked day.
We didn't make him do this. I mean, I don't know what it is.
You have to kill him that fast.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but a really stacked day for League of Legends and an awesome best of 5 for us. Also an awesome best of 5 yesterday, although the Mad Lions were a bit happier than Schalke. They secured EU's final spot at Worlds 2020 and a shot versus Rogue tomorrow.
And to be frank, it wouldn't have felt fair or justified if Mad Lions didn't go to Worlds after the incredible breakout year that they had. Again, this was a squad that was entirely rebuilt around Humanoid, a bunch of young, fresh faces that came in and took the LEC by storm.
Yeah, and I like the adaptation they had throughout the game. They had so many different picks to put Shadow on more comfort. You saw Humanoid bring out the Akali, which he was known for so much last year, and they just looked like their dominant selves throughout the regular strip.
Yeah, and I do want to give a special shout out to Kaiser in particular. I know that there were a ton of names that you could talk about, but the Emperor on the Rift was so pivotal. That mid-split MVP really showing up on picks like the Leona.
He did, and if you missed the winning celebration or the victory celebration that Matt did, go and watch it. It was really cool. But the key player of this series ended up being Shadow. And this is a contentious one, I know, for my analyst, because he did play very well. He pulled out some different picks, but you guys are not entirely convinced that he will have what it takes to take it much further.
Yeah, I mean, he played super well apart from the set game, obviously. I think set is one of the meta champs that Shadow kind of struggles with. But when he went back to the Lee Sin, the Lilia, he looked so confident. But we were talking about it, the Volibear's out, the set's out, the Trundle's out. So when it comes to early game dominance, Shadow's missing a few picks, I feel like.
Yeah, I just have to echo that sentiment. So if we go to Worlds and Lilia is taken away, like Shadow needs to find something else in his wheelhouse to make him still as impactful as the Mad Lions need for the world stage.
Yeah, we'll see him develop, of course, but they'll be back tomorrow. But we also have to say goodbye to Schalke, and you said it there, Frosk. It would feel unjust if Mad Lions didn't go to Worlds, but man, was that miracle run so cool to follow, and they just did an amazing job. But sadly for the org, it's now 3 years in a row that they fall one series away from Worlds. That's not fun for these guys, but they should be so proud of what they did so far.
Yeah, unfortunately, the world will not get to see the miracle that was Schalke, but EU certainly knows it. And I know that that does not make it an easier pill to swallow. It will really hurt for you guys. But to Odo, Gilius, Abba, Neon, and Dreams, you guys played your hearts out, and we are so proud of you. I hope to see you come back bigger and better next year.
Yeah, I have to agree with exactly what Frosk said. I mean, a huge 5-week win streak, going into playoffs, 3-0ing SK, and then coming in against Mad yesterday. They showed signs of greatness, and I think they should be really proud of what they've achieved.
Yeah, have so much to build on. Congrats from us to them. However, it does mean that Mad will face Rogue tomorrow. Let's take a look at this bracket. We're still talking about the lower bracket for Rogue and Mad, and they were the top teams. They were #1 for most of the season, and now they are fighting versus each other to get back up there.
Yeah, and reminding it's also for that seeding position. So we still don't know who's going to be 4th or 3rd. Now, Rogue have a lot to prove, I think. I think after their fall down to Fnatic in the 3-0, people are really scratching their head. They need preparation time, and people just want to see what type of Mad Lions will hit Rogue and what Rogue will hopefully hit back with.
Yeah, Kazi said on PGL yesterday that Rogue's been playing the exact same playstyle since week 1. So obviously they kind of read them like an open book. Maybe they can abuse their playstyle, or Mad can find some good picks against them.
We'll see. And as you said about Worlds, the loser of Rogue versus Mad will be starting Worlds 2020 in the play-in stage, which hasn't necessarily been a bad thing historically for Europe. But I think you do want to start in that group stage, you know, and get a fresh start.
Realistically, I think it'd be the best case scenario almost for both these squads. Mad Lions, a very young squad, gives you some time, get your feet wet, figure out what's happening in the world's meta. And Rogue, maybe that gives you more time to actually figure out how to play a different play style.
Definitely. In terms of the games that we will see tomorrow, what is your gut feeling as per how good they will match up versus each other? Because that perpetual underestimation of Rogue kind of came true last round, and I'm having a hard time putting a lot of faith into them for that tomorrow's best of 5.
Yeah, well, Rogue's consistency kind of won in the best of 1s against Mad. I think in a sort of best of 5, Mad can pull out the Akali, the Orianna, Humanoid's comfort, Shadow's comfort, and maybe they can look to shut down Rogue. Rogue because they haven't looked so good in the last best of 5. I think there's a lot of holes in their draft, a lot of holes in their playstyle. But Rogue, they've had a week's practice. If they can step it up, they should be back in form.
And I do want to come to defense to Rogue as kind of we tie out this Worlds discussion and just this idea that if there's any team that you really want to send to Worlds to be super consistent in a group stage where you're facing a bunch of different playstyles and best of ones, like Rogue is the best that we have. They were first for a reason, and I'm really excited to see what they can do on the international stage.
I mean, you brought it up. Let's talk a bit more about the World Championship. Of course, we're having more and more teams that are qualifying. We're up to 11 right now. And Frosk, you are, of course, our resident EU, but also LPL analyst. So, you know, looking to defend their back-to-back titles. What can you tell us about the strength of the World seeds from LPL?
Let me tell you, this is like the greatest World Championship for me ever because I get 8 teams that I get to care about. 4 LPL seeds, 4 EU seeds, and we only have 3 that have qualified so far for the LPL. It's TES, Top Esports, I'm sure that you guys have heard of them, Knight, the Golden Hand, JD Gaming, and then Suning Gaming. So organizations that we have never seen before. Now, JD Gaming, we would have seen them at MSI if we had them because they are back-to-back, or excuse me, the spring champions with TES taking summer, and I just wanted to highlight some of the key players. TES, they're kind of like your baby Invictus. You have Knight and Karsa, the strongest mid-jungle. JDG, this is the very intelligent team. Kanavi is probably the best jungler in the LPL, formed between a great top laner and a great mid laner known as the dumpling duo, Zoom and Yagao. And then you have Sword Art, people probably recognize that name, and SOFM, Sofum, finally making his debut on the international stage.
Yeah, and there's 3 junglers there. That's what LPL is known for. The jungle creativity, the level 1 invades, the level 2 invades even. I think just their their whole jungle meta is slightly different to Europe, but I think their playstyles are so aggressive, and I just love to watch them.
What do we have to make of the fact that LPL has been doing so good the last couple of years, and they always end up bringing new teams and new looks with some maybe old and known names, but yeah, they can show so many different things and still be successful at Worlds.
So here's the pros and cons. You have to recognize that the LPL and the LCK have been scrimming each other the entire time, so they've continued to get stronger and better, and the mechanical ability of these teams is absolutely terrifying. If you thought Invictus Gaming was scary, TES have the same mechanical ceiling as IG, minus the coin flip. They're a much more consistent team. That said, there are no longer the massive veterans of the RNGs and the EDGs. Yes, you still have guys like Sword Art and Karsa that you know can perform under pressure on an international stage, but there's also a ton of question marks. Maybe these young teams go to the world stage and they completely collapse under the pressure, so it's like, good news is that maybe they've stumbled. Bad news is like, holy shit, there's a ton of really talented players.
That's what I'm thinking.
And that's the thing, you don't really know how good the LPL LCK is yet. I mean, Europe is showing some signs of greatness with G2 getting back in form, so when they go to Worlds and they face these teams, I think these series are going to be closer than people expect.
I mean, I think last year I was like, we'll see if they're really that good again. Now I'm not making that mistake. I'm sure the LPL is incredibly strong. So let's then talk about the EU teams at Worlds. EU now runner-up 2 years in a row, but we have to say, as a whole, great results. All 3 teams out of groups last year. 2 teams out of groups the year before, and a semi-finalist and a finalist. So they have something to fight for here, these 4 teams.
I think we kind of got the best of both worlds. If the LPL is sending all of these young, kind of unproven squads, you have the 2 pillars of Europe with Fnatic and G2, who you know will get you results. And then we also have our younger rookies who will learn so much on the international stage in Rogue and Mad.
And that's the thing, even going through planes wouldn't be so bad for either of these 2 squads. You know, you've got all the practice throughout planes, you'll be scrimming all these teams, you'll be practicing on the stage a week before. So when you come into the group stage from planes, which they will make it, I'm sure of it, they should be able to pop off. Because if you look at it historically, all the planes teams, Splice, G2 in the last 2 years, they've always made it out of groups.
And I also think, you know, when you send the younger teams, what we've seen is it's kind of a cascading effect in the time after, because you cannot underestimate the amount of experience you get when you get to scrim in that environment and play on that environment against the best teams in the world.
It's just a huge level up, and then it makes the region so much more powerful, which is why it really felt bad to miss MSI, because that's just a huge moment where Europe gets to go face all the Eastern teams, then bring that power back to Europe domestically. Without that, I'm really curious what the gap is between EU and the Eastern teams right now, and if Worlds is long enough that we can catch up with scrims.
Let's close off this topic and again maybe talk about Rogue. I think this has been the most contentious talking point with the whole going from 3 to 4 seeds this year, which was unforeseen, right? And the bracket then kind of played out as such, but the way they got it, you can't take that away from them. It was direct matches to lock that #1 spot. It was strength over an entire summer season. They deserve it, and they can end up being 4th seed. But I think you can't just throw them away as they will do nothing at Worlds.
Yeah, I have to agree. I mean, you could see throughout the whole split, they had so much consistency. They were beating all the top teams, and they were doing it in style. You know, they were playing the macro so well. The picks were so good. I just think losing one best of 5, you shouldn't sort of jump the gun and say, wow, Rogue's just terrible. They finished first place.
Best of ones, by the way, when they get to Worlds.
Exactly. Consistency.
Exactly.
Best of ones. They're coming out on top. I, for one, am very excited for Rogue to come out to snipe one of the LPL teams, maybe take the bullet right there, and then allow EU to get to a semi. So thank you, Rogue, for your due diligence.
Let's see what happens indeed. But now tonight in the LEC, keeping with tradition, it is time for the G2 versus Fnatic showdown we have all been waiting for.
And they're going to try to buy a bit more space, but he cannot connect now. The rest of the team now coming in. Jankos, though, he's already used the grid. He's going to be very squishy, but they cannot quite kill him because an unbreakable comes in at the perfect time.
Fnatic, I think they kind of looked a bit shook off after we beat them last final. It's like they felt like what they were doing just could never like work against us, and I think they just wanted to change it up and find a new way of playing that could actually beat us.
Submit still trying to get in. Golden Shadow, there's the jump. Submit dives into the back line.
And we always manage to find these like solutions to our problems that we always just make it work. So if the meta keeps on going like this way for us, it's perfect, honestly. I feel like it's just right for our players.
A rivalry older than time and LEC itself, and both teams looking solid in round 1. The playoff buff coming into play for both Fnatic and G2, but the record is against them, Frosk.
What I think is interesting is kind of recontextualizing this matchup. It's awesome that we do have our 2 pillars in G2 and Fnatic, but to be frank, it's not really a rivalry anymore because Fnatic have yet to take a single game off of G2 in 2020. But that doesn't take away from the prestige of wearing one of these jerseys. If you are going to be a top player in Europe, you must have 1 point have worn the orange and black or the black and red at some point in your career. Just think about like all of the collective championships that everyone has walked through Fnatic or G2 have gone on to do.
Yeah, I have to reiterate what Frost says there. I mean, G2 and Fnatic have always been the winners, like the world finals and all this such, and just winning the splits. And if you look at last year, G2 versus Fnatic was 2-0 up in the best of 5, and they got reverse sweeped.
Oh.
And then they were sort of in the finals, they went to 5 games, and just this year, it feels like Fnatic, the iteration of Fnatic just isn't coming close to G2. I hope it does get closer because the competition is great.
Yeah, and then I think it's just about if the series isn't competitive and if G2 continue to pull away, I think it's still a celebration of the sheer number of talent that's on the Rift when you see a Fnatic versus G2. Throw a rock anywhere and you can hit a superstar.
And the thing is, we have often seen that they bring out the best in themselves, right? And they do level up when they play versus each other in a best of 5. Let's see what information we can get from last week. Of course, Fnatic surprised a lot of people by 3-0ing Rogue with that new style. They practically ran over them, and that was also not expected.
Yeah, I mean, they came up with a new style. I mean, it wasn't exactly unheard of, but
No.
the style works for them. That's what matters. The carry junglers, the tanks and utilities in the bot lane. So, I mean, it worked for them so well.
Yeah, and I think they said it themselves when they faced you, that they thought that the carry jungler style worked
Glad
out.
we
They're like,
could
yeah, thank you, Caedrel, for boosting Fnatic. No, but I think the big standout, everyone will focus on self-made, but I do want to give praise to Nemesis in particular, finding that Lucian pocket pick to unlock the AP junglers, and Nemesis was under such an intense scrutiny to find his performance against Larson, who has had his number all split, was big brains for that guy.
I mean, and now it's going to be an even bigger challenge for Nemesis, of course. He's up versus Caps and G2. G2 in their own right, they took down Mad 3-1. And that's like a trickier one for me to have like a definitive judgment about because G2 was definitely better. But we did see that Mad was able to poke and prod a couple of times.
Yeah, Mad took a game off them. There was a game where they had Baron and they were actually going to win the game, but they go for a 2 overzealous dive and G2 come back. So, I mean, I think G2 still is super strong. There was a few hiccups in the best of 5, I think, against Mad, but yeah, I think just their raw individual skill is just too big.
Yeah, and I'm just hoping that we continue to see Mad Lions level up because while it feels that, you know, the world's teams have been decided and we've kind of lost momentum, I'm still like, is it going to be Fnatic G2 in a final or is it going to be Mad Lions or Rogue in that final?
Ooh.
And that's kind of like the last race that I'm really wanting to see is use this time, use this best of 5 experience to really ramp up into your final form for Worlds, and Mad Lions seem to finally have come back to life.
Yeah, we'll see if anyone can take down G2 and if it will be Fnatic, because Fnatic, they struggled to find their style early in summer, but then they got some unexpected help.
Shemai Planhounda Croeso, the Enui Adishefius. Now, many of you have wondered how Fnatic went from tragic to magic. Fortunately, I'm here to explain how that happened. Now, the biggest problem on the staff of Fnatic was the sous chef, LS. His dishes were just too spicy. It lacked the necessary stability and foundation that's needed in the current meta. After too many wave freezes and Soraka bot lanes, Fnatic decided to go elsewhere. So, they realized they needed my help. Of course, I stepped in. Now, as an expert in the field of lean cuisine and meta comps, I decided to go with some meta fettuccine, sticking to things like Senna and Thresh to act as a base. However, we needed something that would shake up the competition, something unexpected that only Fnatic would draft. And that, of course, is an Evelynn. The honey to your tea, the applesauce to your pork chops, the pineapple to a pizza. Evelynn brings the whole dish together. Oh, look at that, just beautiful. Now, people were probably worried when our meta fettuccine was looking pretty bland after the Evelynn was banned out. But we had it covered. When they ban out the sweet, you go for the savory. Of course, just like garlic, Karthus is a champ that takes some time to warm up, but eventually gives your draft the flavor that it needs. Of course, none of this would be possible without the piece de resistance, the final piece of the puzzle, that last bit of Lego to complete your Millennium Falcon. It is Lucian. Lucian is to this draft what strawberries are to cream. A combination so delicious you can't help but want it all the time. Truly a class of culinary excellence, if you ask me. Now, for more on Fnatic and what they're cooking up today in their kitchen, we're going to hear from Laure and their team director.
And thank you very much, Chefius, to help Fnatic find their form here with the draft. And also thank you, Javier, for joining me here for this interview.
Thank you for inviting me.
No problem. I mean, you're the team director, and I mean, Chefius was talking about the Fnatic drafts here and how we've seen a resurgence from Fnatic, and I want to have your opinion on this because I know you guys have been playing from a different location starting playoffs, and the players have been very vocal about the fact that they can put themselves into the right mindset to play on stage, if that makes sense. So talk me through the decision of switching the team from one location to another, and also why not sooner, maybe?
I mean, definitely it has been a rough season because, yeah, like of COVID and the limitation that we have had to play from the studio. Of course, that we haven't been able to play most of the year from there. And I think there are certain teams, and definitely us, it's one of them, that are have players that are on-stage players, I could say, and they really like grow in that experience. Like they really perform better, and so yeah, I'm super happy that we took the decision of going to level because it was, as you said, it was trying to replicate as much as possible the experience of going to the studio. This is an idea that we have had for some weeks already, but we didn't find any place that suited us for what we wanted. And after the Berlin Brawl event that we did here, we were super happy with the setup, and then we saw it very clear that this could be an upgrade for the team.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it's the best on-stage experience you can find right now when you're a team like Fnatic looking for this stage buff, as you know, in playoffs here. But I mean, talking about the series coming today, I wanted to ask you something about a tweet that Fnatic CEO Sam Matthews posted earlier today, saying that he's excited for today, but there should be zero expectations. You guys are coming with no weight on your shoulders. It's on G2s. I take that you read this tweet, so what do you think about it? Because from an outside perspective, it feels like not giving up, but yeah, trying to relieve some weight off the players' shoulders, actually.
Well, I think it's actually fair to say that G2 is looking solid right now, and we have had a tricky split. We are getting way better, but we are still a bit away from our best level possible, even though like we did a super good performance last week against Rock. Anyway, like I think like these games are a banger and anyone can always win because we have like players with a lot of talent on both sides, and I mean, I obviously don't take Sam tweet as a surrendering or something like that. I'm very confident with the level that our guys are showing, but let's be honest, it's like G2 has been more consistent in the last weeks than us, and I think that's why that's what Sam wanted to reflect with that tweet.
All right, well, thank you very much for your insights on this. So I take that we're going to have a banger series and exciting games today, right?
Yeah, I mean, I really hope like we can have 5 games, of course, on our side, number 3, but yeah, I really hope like it can be a long and exciting series because I think like fans will really appreciate that. And today, at the end of the day, it's a different to last year, for example, best of 5s, because there's still a loser bracket for any of the teams that can lose today. So I think today it's a good day to have fun.
It always comes down to Fnatic and G2 fighting on the Rift in the end. But Javier, thank you very much for the interviews and these insights about Fnatic.
Thank you very much to you.
And back to you, Sjokz.
Thank you very much, Laure. Muchas gracias a ti, Javi. And yeah, there we go. The Sam Matthews tweets, it maybe looked like throwing in the towel, but we know that's not true. And he's also hinting at there is that possibility that Fnatic and G2 go so toe-to-toe that we get the full 5 games. And you can't really predict much more than that. We are unsure of what will happen. What we do know, though, is that both teams' junglers will show up this series, or hopefully so, because they fulfill such different roles for their respective teams.
Yeah, and kind of very different play styles and how they approach it. In a super generalized kind of top-down view, you have Selfmade on one side that is playing much more kind of the LCK jungle style, where the laners are supporting the jungler and the jungler is setting the pace. On the other side, it's kind of more the LPL play style, where Sjokz is kind of throwing his body into the luxury of G2's incredible laners and playing for the lanes themselves to allow them to take over the map.
Yeah, you can see on screen Sjokz's champion pool. It's just all early game. There's no farming here. It's just CC set up an early gank. So when you play against a team like G2 and they draft these winning lanes and an early game jungle matchup, they know that all they want to do is push in these lanes, look for dives, look for early neutral objectives, finding the enemy jungler, or just shutting you down.
A question from my part is then when I looked at the Fnatic games with Selfmade, though, it wasn't like he wasn't ganking. He was also stepping up as the carry and actually being super fed by ganking. But was it in a different manner than Sjokz does it for G2?
I feel like the way Rogue played around Selfmade's picks, it wasn't the best. So you can see here they gave him a double kill at level 4. So I just feel like the whole idea of shutting Selfmade down wasn't a big thing for Rogue. I think Selfmade managed to get to like level 9, level 10 without getting punished too hard, and that just led to him snowballing super hard into mid-game and just kind of taking over.
And this is why it kind of begs a lot of questions. Against Rogue, Fnatic looked amazing, but I don't really know how this style is going to measure up against one of the top teams in the world. I am very excited that Fnatic, if they fall down here, would get another chance because they'd move into the losers bracket, but also time for them to figure out if this is the playstyle that will work before they go to the international stage. I'd rather have this burnout against G2 or thrive against G2 than make a giant kerfuffle on Worlds.
You know what? I understand what you're saying, but I still want this to be a very tight best of 5 and them to be close together. We talked a lot with Sjokz already about Fnatic finally finding their style. They were very deliberate about it as well. Caedrel, it isn't just about that jungle. It is about every other piece around it as well.
So the way I like Fnatic's sort of play style these days is they get the early jungler that's going to farm up, they're going to get to mid game, they're going to carry through just being a damage threat. And the way they draft around their lanes is they just draft these sort of pushing lanes which aren't too volatile. They aren't going to go for these huge solo kills too much. You saw Nemesis on the Lucian could go for solo kill, but he went TP every game. And that's basically just to keep the push in mid, keep the push in bot, keep the push in top, just so this Evelyn can get to mid game and not get punished. Because if you draft a comp like this and you're even at like 20 minutes, I think you're in a super good spot.
Yeah, and of course, again, credit to Nemesis finding the Lucian pick to allow Selfmade to also have the AP scaling junglers. Now, the thing about this playstyle, though, is that you need to be really tight in your lanes because you're protecting Selfmade. You're creating space so he can get the first 2 clears, get to level 6 without any problems, which means if you mess up your lane state, if you're not a top tier laner, your jungler's not coming to help you fix an enemy freeze. He's not bailing you out of anything. You're basically on your own, and that can expose guys like Bwipo when he's greeting for a wave, when he's picked out. But guys like Reckless and Hilly are usually some of the best laners that Fnatic have. Reckless is just so good in this regard.
Yeah, and you can see the Senna-Ashe matchup being traded against Rogue, and they always got this sort of solo kill in bot. Fnatic's bot lane were playing super good, and the way they play around Reckless is just so good. Just leaving him to farm, Hylissang roaming around, Reckless keeping up in CS and XP, and Hylissang just making plays around the map.
I mean, Reckless has been a bit of an unsung hero who's got a lot of praise, I think, at
Robbed
the back end
again.
of this split. Robbed again. But in the same vein, Frosk, you had some thoughts about the way we paint Hilly as a coin flip player.
Yeah, I totally get what people are saying, but it's just not true, guys. Like, I understand. You see Hilly just int into a bot lane. You're like, what are you doing? Coin flip just all the time. He has a plan. There is a genius behind it. If Reckless and Hilly know that a matchup is unplayable when you don't have flash, guess what he's doing? He's trading that flash every time. And then they punish you so hard. He'll constantly get freezes on. He'll set up the wave for Reckless. He's roaming up into the top lane. Like, Hilly has intention here. It's kind of a feast or famine playstyle. Sometimes he gets caught out when he's going for it.
Well, that's why in the LCK they call him the professor, right? Because he does think that way. So let's talk then about the bot lane versus the G2 bot lane of Perkz and Mickey. Is there an opportunity here for Fnatic to exploit this bot lane? Is that even possible?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the Mad Lions series, what Mad Lions did was they forced Mickey onto a Yuumi, and that shut down G2 really hard in the early game. I think if Mickey X is on these kind of range supports, which aren't really playing for roam, they're playing for like lane, like the Karma, the Yuumi, stuff like this, then I think G2's bot lane is kind of neutralized, and Hylissang can be the one roaming around. And the thing I like about Hylissang is this guy's not afraid to just base on a bot wave, run top, and gank top, whereas Mickey's more oriented around mid-jungle. So they're 2 different playstyles, but if you can get Mickey off of a roaming support, you're in a really good spot.
I know that the junglers will be a focal point of discussion here because they are so pivotal to their teams, but I do agree with Caedrel that I think that this matchup is really about the bot lane, and it's about kind of relearning what these teams think about the hierarchy of the bot lane champions, the Ashes, the Sennas, the Ezreal, and how they all work together. We saw yesterday Neon lose on both sides of the matchup, the Ashe and the Senna matchup. These 2 players and these, I guess, 4 players down here could think about the matchups completely differently, could turn it with different supports, and that just means so much. Do we just see handshakes on Ashe Senna where we're just bouncing waves back and forth and everyone's locked in? Or do they think about the matchups differently, throw in a Kalista and a Jhin, and then suddenly you have Mickey and Hilly unlocked, and where are they racing to? Mickey racing toward Caps, or Hilly racing towards Nemesis, Selfmade, or Bwipo?
Yeah, exactly. That Kalista from Perkz is no slouch. We also know that Reckless historically has been able to pull out a lot of different champions, like the Jhin, even in recent weeks. So are you predicting that it's going to be a lot more volatile and a lot more open in terms of bot lane picks than yesterday, for instance?
Well, yeah, I think G2 is always good at throwing curveballs at a team and them not expecting it. The Ashe Senna trade is something that's going throughout the entire world, sort of in the LPL, everywhere, basically. But the thing is, Ashe is kind of good against Kalista, so maybe that matchup won't happen. But if Ashe is out and they pick Senna and they want to go for something like the Kalista Nautilus, the Kalista Thresh, I think G2's bot lane is in a state to just take over.
And that's why I think it was so important that Reckless did show the Ashe to say that, Perkz, I know you play Kalista, I know you have high priority on it, I dare you, pick it.
Double dare you. We'll see what happens in this series. So it's time for predictions. We are very close to that epic best of 5. So yeah, what's it going to be, Caedrel? Who's going to win today and why?
So I'm going to say 3-1 to G2. I think Fnatic could win 1 game because it feels like sometimes G2 drop the ball in the first game in best of 5. I don't know why, but historically they always drop the ball in the first game. So don't overestimate Fnatic if they do win the first game. I think 3-1 to G2. I think their playstyle is so good. It's so kind of reflective of the LPL. They like to get their jungle support early together, level 4, level 5, get some kills, shut down the enemy jungler, and especially shut down the enemy mid laner for Caps.
I'm pretty much aligned with Caedrel there. I think that there will be a fumble, and Fnatic have strong enough members that they can punish G2 in a game. I hope it's close all 4 games that we get. Hopefully you go to 5. But I do also want to highlight Akali. Akali was a huge priority pick, and the thing that G2 have over any other team is they can flex Akali between Wonder and Caps.
Yeah.
If Fnatic are forced to permaban that, then red side becomes a disaster for them, and you can very quickly look at a 3-0 just from draft disadvantage alone.
Yeah, I have an inkling that we haven't seen much from what G2 is willing to play yet, but we'll see today in this rivalry that stood the test of time. And with both teams carrying the playoff buff, we are in for one hell of a ride. One of the most unpredictable seasons we have ever had.
Do or die, right, for so many of these teams.
If you hadn't caught it yet, Schalke is still in the race.
Ignore the Schalke miracle run if you want, but Schalke are a damn good team right now.
Rattling off the damage. Croucher escapes from up and Dreams manages to land the dead charge.
Worlds is the goal, and we're 3 games away from Worlds, so I'm going to focus on that first.
Sweet! Here comes Helios! The railgun comes out! Neon gets the kill.
It's only natural to kick out my other coach, Mac, from playoffs, so I would rather play Mad Lions and just send them home.
So there it is! There's the Hemo Blake! Oh no, wait for the perfect moment! That's gonna pop, not be able to do a lot more though. Oh! It does it again!
Who's going to make it to Worlds, Reckless?
Schalke.
Schalke. Oh, you're also on the hype train.
Mad Lions, they were kind of on a downturn. If they bring back to their previous level, then I think we get a close series.
Oh, it's Caedrel flashing in fearlessly, running down G2. They don't have enough damage to heal. He's healing off the dragon in the meantime. Oh my god, Caedrel absolutely dominating that fight.
Mad Lions did have a few games against G2 where they showed some signs of greatness.
The damage to finish the job, the delayed snare, now the Hecarim moving in, Wonder has to run for the hill, Shadow wants to turn it, he gets Purse, he looks to Wonder, this is so much gold for the Hecarim, oh my god!
This is here comes the showstopper as well. Southmade has to use the ult to try and survive in the pit and is stolen away. Once again, Inspired gets it.
Coming to playoffs, I thought the 2 best teams are us and G2. I guess Fnatic proved me wrong.
Reckless is caught out by himself, but on the front line is Hillersang.
That we didn't really play like we used to. I don't really care who we play between Schalke and Mad Lions. Yeah, I mean, they play for Worlds, right? And hopefully we'll prepare better this time.
Making Worlds, yeah, you must be incredibly relieved that Fnatic had such a good showing.
This tower, ooh, Finn, no, this could be dangerous. Ooh, good barrels.
Hillersang flashes in with the play, TP's gonna come in, but there's the Requiem.
They go from 0-3 to 3-0, they come out of groups. This is a team that's very hard to doubt.
Our games today, I feel like my team did so well. I don't know how to put it in any different way.
On its way up for Reckless, and the gun connects.
Selfmade has shown that he can play on carries, he can play on tanks, his jungle packing is incredible, his stats are amazing.
Selfmade is a very good jungler when he's on a carry.
Right now he's hovering around the bot lane, he has his eyes on Hans Summer.
Hans Summer has plans, has flash, Selfmade dives in, Hans Summer has no chance.
It's super exciting to see that we can still do it, you know, at the end of everything, even if we've had a tough split.
Reckless, you get another shot at G2.
I feel like it's gonna be a banger once again.
At the end of the day, I think G2 and Fnatic will perform in playoffs.
G2 has really risen in the last couple of weeks.
Space is possible to Rome is going down. In the meantime, Caps is still alive, but there's too many members of Mad left standing. Caps wants to turn it. Dash, auto, trying to finish it. Caedrel goes down. He cannot be stopped in this exchange. Triple kill coming in for Wonder, and Caps carries the fight.
When G2's on a roll, they are the best team in Europe, and I don't think that's really disputable.
Is it G2 versus everyone else these playoffs?
It's Caps versus everybody else.
Once Caps started winning, he never stopped. This man is unstoppable. The pullback, will they look for the re-engage? You can tell that they're debating, but the minions are already pushing into the base. The more time, oh my god, the damage from Caps. 25 stack Magi's, he's just playing with his food, leaping in, leaping out.
It'd be a bit different to old Fnatic G2 series where it's sort of tank junglers. This might be a full-on scrap between Jankos and Selfmade.
Going to crash this wave, Jankos making sure that Wonder's probably not going to get dove. Using Blast Cone though, he's going for the game.
That's so much CC, now they're going to be in trouble. That is the power of this champion. The pullback, Arome now trying to run to safety. Facebreaker, where's it going to go? Jankos waiting, trying to find 2 kills.
You cannot never ever count Fnatic out. I think they can come back very strong. I want the toughest competition possible so that we can learn and be stronger at Worlds.
Mad Lions and their crazy play style and their innovative picks across the board. The anti-meta team is what they've been called.
The team is just showing versatility, adaptability, and in recent weeks, consistency as well. We don't right now know who the best team in Europe is.
If there was a year for them to do it, we've said it before, but I think this is the year.
G2 or Fnatic have won every single title in the EULCS/LEC outside of summer 2014. Will we see a new champion, yes or no?